In a small village called Uzoma, nestled deep in the heart of Africa, life was simple and peaceful. The villagers farmed, danced, and told stories under the moonlight. But there was one story no one dared to tell, a story about a young girl named Adana, who was born with a mysterious secret. When Adana was born, the midwife noticed something unusual. The baby had a tiny, glowing mark on her lower abdomen. The elders were called, and they whispered among themselves. They said it was a sign from the ancestors, a blessing, or perhaps a curse. No one knew for sure. As Adana grew, she became the most curious child in the village. She loved exploring the forests, climbing trees, and talking to animals. But the other children avoided her. They said she was strange. Some even claimed they saw her mark glow at night. One day, a group of boys decided to tease Adana. They called her names and laughed at her. But Adana didn't cry. She simply smiled and walked away. The boys didn't know that Adana's secret was far more powerful than they could ever imagine. One night, as Adana slept, her mark began to glow brighter than ever before. A strange energy filled the air. The animals in the forest grew restless, and the wind howled through the trees. Adana's secret was awakening. One day, a tall, mysterious man arrived in Uzoma. He wore a long, dark cloak and carried a staff carved with strange symbols. The villagers were afraid, but the man said he had come to help. He claimed to be a healer, but his eyes were cold and calculating. The healer noticed Adana immediately. He watched her from afar, his eyes narrowing as he saw her mark. He knew what it was, a rare and powerful gift from the spirits. He decided he would do whatever it took to take it for himself. The healer began to spread rumors about Adana. He told the villagers that her mark was a curse and that it would bring disaster to Uzoma. The villagers, already wary of Adana, began to believe him. They demanded that something be done. The village elders called a meeting. They debated for hours, but in the end, they decided that Adana must leave the village. They gave her 3 days to pack her things and go. Adana's heart was broken, but she knew she had no choice. Adana left Uzoma with nothing but a small bag of food and a water gourd. She wandered through the forest, not knowing where to go. But as she walked, her mark began to glow again, guiding her like a compass. Deep in the forest, Adana met a spirit in the form of a wise old tortoise. The tortoise told her that her mark was a gift from the ancestors, a source of great power. But with great power came great responsibility. Adana would have to learn to control it. The tortoise taught Adana how to harness her power. She learned to summon the energy of her mark and use it to protect herself. She also learned that her power could heal, but it could also destroy if used wrongly. Meanwhile, the healer had not given up. He followed Adana's trail, determined to take her power for himself. He used dark magic to track her, and soon he was closing in. One night, as Adana slept under a tree, the healer appeared. He tried to grab her, but her mark glowed brightly, and a burst of energy knocked him back. Adana woke up and ran, her heart pounding. The healer chased Adana through the forest, using his dark magic to create obstacles. He summoned thorny vines to block her path and called on wild animals to attack her. But Adana's mark protected her, and she managed to escape. Adana reached a wide, rushing river. The tortoise had told her about this river. It was a test of courage. Adana took a deep breath and jumped into the water. The current was strong, but her mark gave her the strength to swim across. On the other side of the river, the healer was waiting. He had used his magic to create a trap, a deep pit covered with leaves. Adana fell into the pit, but her mark glowed again, and she floated safely to the ground. Adana knew she couldn't run forever. She turned to face the healer, her mark glowing brightly. The healer laughed and said, "You cannot defeat me, child. Your power will be mine." Adana closed her eyes and focused all her energy on her mark. A blinding light erupted from her body, and the healer was thrown into the air. He landed hard on the ground, his dark magic shattered. The healer tried to get up, but he was too weak. He begged for mercy, but Adana simply said, "Leave this place and never return." The healer crawled away, never to be seen again. Adana returned to Uzoma, her heart full of hope. The villagers were shocked to see her, but they could see that she had changed. Her mark no longer glowed, it had served its purpose. The elders apologized to Adana and welcomed her back to the village. They realized that her power was not a curse, but a blessing. Adana forgave them and promised to use her wisdom to help the village. Adana became a respected member of the village. She used her knowledge to heal the sick and protect the village from harm. The children who once bullied her now looked up to her as a hero. She told her story to the children, teaching them that true power comes from within. And though her mark was gone, its legacy lived on in the hearts of the people of Uzoma. And so, Adana's story became a legend, passed down from generation to generation. It reminded everyone that even the smallest among us can have the greatest power, if only we believe in ourselves. After defeating the evil healer, Adana returned to her village, Uzoma. The villagers welcomed her with open arms, grateful for her bravery. But Adana knew her journey was far from over. Her mysterious mark, though no longer glowing, still held a secret power she didn't fully understand. One evening, as the villagers gathered around the fire to celebrate Adana's return, a strange noise echoed from the forest. It was a deep, rumbling sound that made the ground shake. The villagers grew silent, their hearts filled with fear. Adana felt a familiar tingling in her mark, a warning that danger was near. The next morning, a dark cloud appeared over the village. It wasn't an ordinary cloud, it was thick and heavy, with flashes of red lightning. The villagers whispered that it was a sign of an ancient curse, one that had plagued their ancestors long ago. That night, Adana had a dream. The wise tortoise spirit appeared to her, its eyes glowing with urgency. It told her that the dark cloud was the work of an evil sorcerer who sought to destroy Uzoma. The only way to stop him was to find the sacred tree hidden deep in the forest. Adana knew she had to act quickly. She packed a small bag with food and water and set off into the forest. Her mark began to glow faintly, guiding her like a compass. The villagers watched her go, praying for her safety. The forest was darker and more dangerous than Adana remembered. The trees were twisted, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. Strange creatures lurked in the shadows, their eyes glowing like embers. Adana's mark glowed brighter, protecting her from harm. After hours of walking, Adana reached a river of fire. The flames leaped high into the air, and the heat was unbearable. But Adana remembered the tortoise's words, only the pure of heart can cross the river of fire. She took a deep breath and stepped onto the flames. To her surprise, the fire felt cool beneath her feet, and she crossed safely. On the other side of the river, Adana was confronted by the sorcerer's minions, shadowy creatures with glowing red eyes. They lunged at her, but her mark erupted with a blinding light, sending them fleeing into the darkness. Finally, Adana reached the sacred tree. It was a massive baobab tree, its branches stretching high into the sky. The tree's trunk was covered in glowing symbols, and its roots pulsed with energy. Adana knew this was the source of her power. As Adana approached the tree, the sorcerer appeared. He was tall and thin, with skin as black as coal and eyes that glowed like fire. He laughed menacingly and said, "You cannot stop me, child. The power of the sacred tree will be mine." Adana and the sorcerer faced each other, their powers clashing like thunder. The sorcerer summoned dark magic, creating storms and shadows, but Adana's mark glowed brighter than ever, shielding her from harm. As the battle raged on, Adana noticed something strange. The sorcerer's power seemed to weaken whenever he came close to the sacred tree. She realized that the tree's energy was his weakness. Adana focused all her energy on her mark, drawing power from the sacred tree. A blinding light erupted from her body, engulfing the sorcerer. He screamed in agony as the light consumed him, turning him to ash. With the sorcerer defeated, the sacred tree began to glow. A soft voice echoed in Adana's mind, thanking her for protecting the forest. The tree's roots opened, revealing a small, glowing seed. Adana knew this was a gift for her village. Adana returned to Uzoma with the seed. The villagers planted it in the center of the village, and it grew into a beautiful tree that glowed with the same energy as the sacred tree. The dark cloud disappeared, and the village was filled with light and hope. Adana became the village's protector, using her wisdom and power to guide her people. The villagers no longer feared her mark, they saw it as a symbol of strength and hope. And though her journey was long and difficult, Adana knew she had fulfilled her destiny. Years later, Adana's story became a legend, passed down from generation to generation. The glowing tree in the center of Uzoma stood as a reminder of her bravery and the power of the human spirit. And though her mark no longer glowed, its legacy lived on in the hearts of the people of Uzoma. After planting the glowing seed in the center of Uzoma, the village began to flourish like never before. Crops grew taller, the river flowed clearer, and the animals seemed happier. The villagers believed the seed was a blessing from the ancestors, and they thanked Adana for bringing it to them. But Adana knew her journey wasn't over. Her mark, though no longer glowing, still tingled with energy, as if warning her of new challenges ahead.
Subscribe and turn on notifications so that you will be the first to be notified when the other part is dropped. Have a great day.